Great, here they come. Nicely done, Bob. What a magic trick that is.
Yeah, we have 10 of our participants on right now. So you want to start, Stephen?
Sure. All righty. I'd like to welcome everybody to this Brownbag Lunch series program. It's being sponsored by the Redwood Coast region of the American Planning Association and the northern region of the Association of Environmental Planners, AEP. We've been doing this series face-to-face for a number of years now, and due to issues with the COVID-19, we have switched to using the Zoom conferencing materials, and we are pleased that we can have a number of people from out of the area attend these workshops, which are of value to everybody. So I'd like to thank all of you for attending. We have a series that is done every month on the second Tuesday of the month, and we do have a calendar which we broadcast out to the groups, particularly to our local planners in Humboldt, Lake, Del Norte, and Mendocino counties. Today's presentation will be something that's useful for every planner and anybody who has to submit documents to their county office for recording purposes. And I think you will find this very useful presentation, and hopefully you will come back for additional programs on a number of interesting topics that we have planned. I'm going to introduce Gila Freitas, who is a senior planner for the city of Arcata, and she will introduce our speaker today. Gila, thanks very much.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. So hi, everyone. I wanted to introduce our speaker, Kristine Legg, who is the manager of the Clerk Recorder Office for the County of Humboldt. I met Kristine when she very kindly held my hand through navigating a notice of correction when I had mistakenly recorded a document with the wrong APN. And it was a bit nightmarish, and she was there to make sure that I got through it relatively unscathed. So I really appreciate that. And at the time, I was like, you know, it would be so great if some of the ins and outs of these processes were laid out, and maybe Kristine would be willing to do a brown bag for us. So I reached out, and she very kindly agreed to bring us through some kind of tips and tricks of navigating both recording documents and also researching previously recorded documents. And I think, you know, everyone who's on the call today is on here because you've been there and you know that it can be a bit complicated, and it helps to have some pointers to save you multiple trips. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Kristine, and thank you so much for helping us out.
Of course. Thanks, Dilo. So yeah, I was looking forward to actually sharing information and knowledge with the planners. Anytime we can sort of get information out to help document, I was telling them that we sometimes say that documents get a lot of miles on them because they get rejected back and forth, and sometimes it can be difficult to understand sort of the ins and outs or why it's even being rejected. And so that's going to be part of what we're going to talk about today. And then, so reasons for rejections, some new things coming up, kind of the changes right now in accessing our office under the pandemic. But anyway, I guess we'll just go ahead and start with the slide here. So anyway, this is me, Kristine Legg, a manager of the Clerk Recorder's Office. I've been working in the Clerk Recorder's Office since 1987, a long time. Lots of changes, but by far, I was speaking earlier, we were just kind of getting set up about, this is definitely the most challenging time through my whole career, and we've lived through office floods that have, when the jail leaks, the ceiling leaks through the ceiling, we've made it through office construction where we've all been moved out across the hall and had to access all of our, you know, documents and paper, you know, with hard hats on, and a whole, you know, very myriad of things. But this is definitely the most complicated. And anyway, with that said, let's just get right into it and go to the next slide here. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is the Clerk Recorder website that we have right now. I'm sure some of you have seen it. I'm not sure. We never know how much people are getting out of it, what access what they're finding interesting, what they would like more of. But we're going to go over some things that we have in there. We're going to go over just kind of briefly some CEQA filings and postings. Requirements, just kind of on our end. Obviously, the requirements are fish and wildlife requirements. So I'm assuming most people with CEQA know what those are if they are familiar with the CEQA filing process. And then we'll just go over some of the things that we are requiring in our county. And then thirdly, the recording and rejects that we're going to go in the first part of this little webinar. So let's just move forward. Okay, so this is a lead page from our web page as it currently exists. Lots of things we have on there. For instance, I just have a list here of some things. So we've got the fee schedules, we've got clerk recorder forms, and those are forms that we use in office. So like you'll find cover sheets in there, you'll find notary acknowledgements. If you've got one that's messed up, you can hop on here, download a really good notary acknowledgement form. Notary verification, jurat form. You can find SB2 cover sheets if you need those for any reason. Also, there's a web page that is for recording tips. Lots of things in there for general recording tips. There's also the basic recording requirements page, and that goes over all the code sections, all the specifics, starting from the top of the document to the bottom when it comes to format. Talks about your margins, what's required, the title. It's a pretty full list. So you can go there anytime. That's also on our website. We've got in there the recording process times and document return information. So it basically gives timelines. Although our recording acceptance and recording are the processes of the documents, that whether we receive them by mail or in person is pretty quick. And obviously in person, we record it immediately. When we get it by mail, if it is good to record, it generally records that same day, or it will be rejected within 2 days if there is an issue. Occasionally, if there is an overload of documents where we're just not able to process, like sometimes at the end of the month, especially if the end of the month's on a Friday, sometimes some of the documents that come in the mail, we push to the next day, but they get recorded the next morning. Of course, and then we got the SB2 Building and Homes and Jobs Act. That's the Senate Bill 2, which passed in 2018. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with that. The government agencies, for the most part, anything the government agency is a required signer on, not just approving, but signing, they're going to be exempt from that Housing and Jobs Act. Any document that's exempt from recording fees is exempt from the Housing and Jobs Act $75 fee. So you're probably maybe not too familiar with that. There's also a lot of information on the there's frequently asked questions on our website for that. So a lot of times people find that helpful to go to ahead of time also. All right, let's go on. Okay, so this is just more information that is on our website right now. We've got fictitious business name statement forms, notary oaths and bonds, professional registrations, and those would be your process server, your legal documents clerk, your different professional registrations are all forms are there. If anyone, you guys probably don't do those unless it just happens to be something you're doing in addition to your regular job. But notary verification, which is where you would need to have a notary acknowledgement verified that it is authentic, so that it can then go to the state to be further authenticated with an apostille, and then those are often used for or needed for when you're sending a document to another country. Also, when a document is coming to us, we have information that if, for instance, if a document has any part of it that's in another language, there's a translation certification. The whole process is laid out in the website. If any part of a document, occasionally if you have a homeowner that happens to be in another country and they are not able to get an acknowledgement in English, those would have to be translated by a certified translator. And then there's a certificate that goes along with that. It's kind of a double-step process. All that information is laid out on the website. Of course, we've got our fish and wildlife filings. And we've got all of our vital records information in there for getting certified copies of birth, death, and marriage, which is also under the umbrella of our office. And we also have the marriage license issuance, and we also do marriage ceremonies. So that's all there for people to just go in. Our email's in there. You can always ask a question. Okay, so here I have just a lead page for the, this is from our website. This is just some information. We always have plugged in the current fees. Of course, you guys can always go to the Fish and Wildlife website and find these yourself, but we like to put them here just as a convenience for people. In addition, we have our $50 filing fee that is would be required to be submitted in with the CEQA documents. We've got information here for filing in person. Looks like I need to make a small update to the hours, and because now we are appointment only, but I shall do that now that I have seen that is outdated. Filing by mail is still all current. You always want to have your CEQA document declaration cover sheet when you're submitting your filings. Otherwise it will be rejected, so you need to make sure to have that. It looks like this. And we do see some rejection with this form, and it's mostly because the information that's given on the form does not match the actual filing. And that might be because we assume that sometimes people have it saved in their computer and they forget to update it before printing it and sending it in. So it's always a good idea to double check that. If you check the box that is what you are filing, it should calculate the fee for you. These are available on our website as usual. If anyone has any questions about those, they can certainly ask after the meeting. So moving on. Okay, so one new thing that we had during the closure from the pandemic, at one point, and this was a couple of months ago now, the Board of Supervisors and CAO decided for the safety of everybody, the public and the employees, to close the courthouse to the public. Caused a little bit of a problem because we are required to have the postings, public notices and postings available for the public to come into the lobby to see. And so there were several weeks where we weren't able to do that. So what we decided to do was to put an online clipboard. And so this is what it looks like. There's one for the postings for the notices, and one for the postings, one for the notices, I should say. So anytime you can go in here, we were keeping, let's see, we're over 10 weeks. We're only required to have 4 weeks for the most part, an extra week for some notices, but these are going to be on here while we're still appointment only. Anytime that you want to see what's been filed, you can pop into the week, and they're in here compiled just like they are on the clipboard. They're not indexed by the parties' names. They're just they're basically, just think of it as a virtual clipboard. So if you were to come and pick up the clipboard in our office, they would be in the order that they are assembled here. And they actually, the image of the posting does come up on the computer. Okay. We've got, okay, next section. Okay, so common reasons for rejection, and these are for recordings. I took the liberty of going into the past like 12 months or so to look and see what types of documents that the cities and counties planners in particular tried to look for, what they were being rejected for. And there was a few things that we would see over and over again. And I just thought we would go into them a little bit further to maybe help people understand why they're being rejected, and maybe to keep themselves from getting, them rejected, or like we like to say, put more miles on their documents back and forth, because that just costs everybody more time that they don't need to do. All right, rejections, here we go. I put it grumbling. because it's a rejection. You get it? Okay, my husband thought it was dorky, but I like it. Okay, so top reason, this goes from, we're going to go from the beginning to the bottom. The first reason of rejection is maps, and those are in where, let's just read this first. It's got avoid attaching maps that have shaded areas, lettering or numbering that are too small to scan legibly, or faint lines. Kind of self-explanatory, I suppose. We're not allowed by law, by government code, to accept any document or map, or any part of a document, including maps, I should say, where we're not able to not only scan it legibly, but reproduce again a legible copy that's going to look exactly like the original. And so it's a little bit higher standard. And think of it like if somebody needed to have a certified copy for a court matter or something, and they weren't able to see exactly what was on that original document. So a lot of times we have documents that go back and they're saying, well, I can see it, or I can scan it, or, you know, whatever the criteria are. Maybe that sometimes people have like really great scanners, and probably planners, because you guys probably have some great scanners. But anyway, that's what we're looking for. We do a lot of work on maps that are attached before just outright rejecting them. We will try, we'll try everything. We'll sometimes put them on a copier, try to see if we can get them darkened. We do a lot of work. So, but eventually we still need to, unfortunately, reject them. Shaded areas are just never a good idea. Anytime that you're using a map, like maybe an assessor's plat map as your base, sometimes we see that. They have tiny, tiny, tiny little letters and numbers that look like just little dots when we scan them. But if they're actual letters and numbers on the document that is submitted, we have to be able to make those show, not just as I was saying, not just as we scan them, but to reproduce them again. So whenever you get a map and you see that, if you don't need those letters and numbers, trace out as something new. Or if people have come, when I say people, I say probably the planners and the surveyors have been really inventive, because they've been able to reproduce something again that is acceptable. So we know you guys put a lot of work into that too, and you guys are trying to work with your documents, but just know that if it's something that we're not going to be able to accept, you may want to just head it off at the pass and, try to either get rid of those, that small lettering or numbers that that we're just not going to be able to take, not use certain shadings that will basically cover something that's under them. Some shadings just scan darkly, and then what is underneath them, then you can't read that. And so that's sometimes not a good idea. Okay, margins. So margins by government code are required to be 1/2 inch margin on all sides, and that does include the maps. So maps that go all the way to the edge of a page are not within something that we can accept. They don't follow the requirements of the code. Now and I always tell my examiners, I said, we're not going to whip out the ruler and measure 1/2 inch across all of them. If we feel like we can get it in a scan without the edges disappearing in the scan, we're going to take the document. So, so don't be too concerned about that. But if it goes all the way to the edge, and that's any part of the document, including signatures, which sometimes people get a little over aggressive and they sign all the way to the edge of the document. We won't be able to take that, because when we scan, the very, very side edge doesn't scan all the way in the document. Plus, it's government code. So always try to keep your signers contained if you can, especially if they're crazy. So clarity. Okay, we see this a lot. There have been a lot of rejections with the cities and counties documents with legal descriptions specifically not being legible. And that's sometimes because we know that, in our long time, I see that documents that have legal descriptions that are several pages or even a whole page of meets and bounds and all kinds of information, that it would take a very long time to legibly type that again. So you always like to use, everybody, like when they do a document, they like to use a legal description that's on a previous recorded accepted document. And so it makes sense to do that. But sometimes when the documents are from the 60s, 50s, 70s, They just have been, they're too degraded. You know, it was acceptable back then because they didn't have the legibility standard that we have today. So even sometimes when we make a copy and we send it to you from our records, because we didn't have that reproduce again legibly law, we are going to have documents that we produce the best we can that we will give you, but we still won't be able to accept those back as a legal description attached to a document. So it's, we kind of say our saying for that, we have saying for a lot of stuff. Our saying for that is every 100 years or so, someone's got to retype a legal description. And so hopefully, and you know, obviously I know that while we don't check a legal description to make sure it's the right area, and I mean, that's not something we do, something that you probably do, something the assessor may do to make sure that property is correctly described, because they do check that. But you do want to make sure that it's exactly perfect and exactly matches, you know, what is already on record to make it a good transfer, a good document. So we do feel for you when you have to do that, but if you can't get a good non-blobby or faded legal description, so you may have a problem with that. We do see that rejection a lot. The fourth most common thing that we see is with seals, and those are inked seals that are either covering over text or signature sometimes. So you want to make sure there's a nice clear area. We mostly see the seal stamped over the last line of the notary acknowledgement. So not only does it then make the notary seal illegible, but the lettering underneath the seal is also illegible. So you want to try to avoid that at all costs if you can, because that's going to be rejected. There's a way to fix it. If it's just the notary seal, there's a notary seal, illegible notary seal declaration on our website, another form you can get, attach it. And you just clarify, you don't even have to wait till it gets rejected. If you know it's not a good seal, you can just add that on and we would accept the seal. It's called the legible notary seal declaration, and it's under the government code where it's allowed to clarify a notary seal. However, the illegible notary seal declaration is not you're not allowed to use that to clarify what the seal has stamped on top of. That you need to do an illegible statement and add a page that is the legible version of that page. And then under penalty of perjury, you would state that this is a true and original copy of that illegible portion of the previous page or what have you. And then you would sign that. So there's different ways to do it. If it's too late, there's different ways to fix that. One of them, of course, being the illegible seal declaration, which you can find on our website. Okay, so the last thing that we've been seeing more of, I'm not sure why, but there's certain parts of documents, original documents that are turned into us, submitted with highlight on them, like highlighting pens, which they either don't show up at all when we scan them, or what they'll do, there's certain colors like green, we've noticed, and greens and blues, that they will basically redact or make it black when we try to scan it. So I would avoid using highlighters on original documents that you will eventually be recording, because you don't want that to happen. And plus, if you highlight something and if it's a scanned document, obviously it's not going to look highlighted anymore when you maybe get a copy or whatever, if that's going to be relied upon, which the original document, the official records, sometimes they're relied upon documents. So I would avoid it if that's something that you were thinking about doing. Okay, moving on. Rejections. Okay, so I like the crumpling thing. Okay, so this is another, and my examiners are always complaining that we don't know why they don't understand this. So I thought we were going to go over this in detail while I had the chance. Have a captive audience. Okay, so, and I just name this one names, and names, because in recording or official records, there are 3 points, if you want to call them that, 3 different points in a document where there's names. Documents always have names because they're required to have owners' names, they're required to have the county's names, the city's names. So the 3 points that you need to look at, or that you need to be aware of when you create a document, are the body of the document, the signature line, or the name printable of the signature, more specifically, the acknowledgement, and then the one on the bottom here is entities. Let's see if I can minimize this. Yeah, okay. So just starting at the top here, in a body of a document, any document that's being submitted for recording should have the names in the body of the document, and those should be consistent throughout the body of the document. Any point that is something that we're going to index, and the reason that that's important is that you want that name to match the name that's printed below the signature and the name that's in the acknowledgement. Because if it doesn't, then that document will be rejected because the names don't match. And that is because we need to ensure that the person in the body of the document is the person that signed the document, because we need to make sure that it's a requirement for an examiner to make sure that that signer, that person in that document, that entity, that grantor, is the person that signed it, and then the acknowledgement needs to match because we need to make sure that that person that acknowledged it is the same person that's the signer. So those are the 3 points. Now there's a couple of exceptions, which I didn't write in here, but I'm just going to go over them quickly. Of course, there's sometimes our AKAs, or also known as, and sometimes also there is, especially on deeds, there is who acquired title as, which now those exceptions are acceptable, but they have to be justified within the document somewhere. For instance, if Mary Smith is a grantor and she signs Mary Jones because she's married, but Mary Smith is how she acquired title, the document should say in the grantor section, Mary Jones, who acquired title as Mary Smith. And then that way she can, of course, sign the name that is on her ID, but then the property can still, whatever she's on title as, which is whatever document you want to record, should have the name of the person that's on title. Or if the person has 2 names, for instance, they are Bill on the document and that's how they hold title, but their ID says William. Then it needs to say on the signature point or some point in there, but not either the signature point or within the document, William Jones, who acquired, or also known as William Smith, or Bill Smith, sorry, we were doing first names, but you'll get what I'm saying. So you need to justify that within the document. Let's see, same thing. Now the acknowledgement, there are a couple of variations that are okay with the acknowledgement. I mean, ideally you just want to have them all matched and you're not going to have any issues. But with the acknowledgement, if a middle name versus middle initial is used, that's okay. Because oftentimes people don't use their whole middle name or their middle name at all on their property documents. And so, for instance, Kristine A. Legg, if I was Kristine A. Legg, and I could have in my acknowledgement Kristine Ann Legg, and that would be acceptable, but I couldn't have Kristine B. Legg because that would be contra, what's the word I'm looking for? It would be opposite of what is in there. So as long we can accept it as long as there's nothing in the document for the middle name that is something that is counter to what is in the acknowledgement. Now, but the first name and the last name, including dashes between names, like if it's a hyphenated name, those have to be exactly the same. So a first name and a last name in an acknowledgement have to be the same as the signer, that's printed below the name, I should say, and it has to be the same that's in the body of the document. So if you keep those names consistent, you're not going to have any issues. You're going to get a lot less miles on your documents. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was entities. Whoops. Oh, there we go back. I pulled that one up too fast. last one I wanted to talk about was entities. Now, we see a lot of issues with entities. Entities are anyone other than an individual signer. So that includes also all the agencies. That includes the County of Humboldt, the City of Eureka, City of Arcata, City of Fortuna, all the people. Now, a signature block is a requirement anytime an entity is a signer, and that is for the government agency or for a business or even a trust. And the signer of an entity on the signature block has to have the complete signature block every time. And so you would have the entity's name, you would have the printed name of the signer adjacent to that signature, it's generally printed below, and the designation. And for instance, if it is a trust, it would say trustee. If it was a business and they were the president, it would say president, that kind of thing. So you'll have those, if you have those three things on your entity signature, you're gonna be good. Now, same thing with the city. It would say City of Arcata. It wouldn't just say city manager, because what city manager? Or if a company, you just can't say president. You have to also put of what company in the signature box. You do that every time, you're not gonna have any issues. So, because we want to make sure that we have the right entity in the signature block, that's in the body, that is and then we print the name below to make sure it's the same person that's signing the acknowledgement. So that covers a lot of our basics. We've got one more in the rejection category, and that is document format. As mentioned previously, our website has great information for all of the basic requirements, and that includes the format. So we've seen a lot of rejects for these more recently. I'm not sure why, but the name and address has to be printed in the top left-hand corner. That's because every document that we record, we send back in a window envelope with that name and address. So that needs to be there, and it's also government code requirement. On the top right-hand side, you want to have a clear 3.5 by 2.5 inch area for our recording label, because we can't cover anything up with the label, even if it is not needed. Sometimes we'll send it back and say, we don't need that. You can just cover it, but we're not allowed to do that. So we want to make sure it's clear. We've got great cover sheets on our website. If you know already that you don't have what you need and you either can't fix the document or aren't allowed to fix the document because you didn't create the document, add a cover sheet on, put the title, put the name and return address on the top left-hand corner. If there's a recording fee, it is an additional $3. If it's free, you don't have to worry about that. And the last thing, the government code which is government code 27383, is the government code to allow for free or exempt recording fees. And those are for the documents that are for the benefit of the government agency. And those are direct benefit. For instance, if it's the government agency selling a property to Joe Smith, Joe Smith is required to pay recording fees, so those would have to be collected and submitted at the time of the recording. If it's a property going to the government agency, obviously that would be exempt for recording fees. And there's plenty of examples. If you've done recordings before and you know what is for exempt and what's for the benefit, what's not for the benefit. If you're not sure, you can contact our office and ask us. But it doesn't change. It's not just title, but it's who the parties are. So sometimes you have to take into consideration what type of document it is, in addition to who's the parties, who's the benefiting party on this. But when it is for the government, for the benefit, you just can't send it with no check. You do have to send it with this government code on the face of the document, and you generally be document exempt from recording, government code 27383, or no fee per government code 27383, something like that, but it does include the code section. So nice, make sure to have that on there. You will save yourself a lot of time. And later, let's see, where are we on time here? Okay, so what's new? This is gonna be the best part. This will be a fun part. Okay, so I just got just a little bit of information here in regards to how we're protecting the public and the staff under the pandemic. Accessing the clerk recorder services now, as we have it, and then our new self-service web that you guys are going to be the first one to see the front page of. Okay, so protecting the public and staff in the pandemic. These are some things that we're doing that have been changed. So now all in-person services and access to the lobby are by appointment only. Only one customer is admitted at the counter service at a time. So that means one customer, as in like if you and your partner that you're working with, or you and your family member, or a bride and groom, kind of one appointment at a time. So so also we have one customer at a time admitted into the lobby area to research. So we can have one person with an appointment that is searching in the lobby and the kiosk area and the books, or looking at public notices if they still want to come in. And then one customer that's at the front counter working at a time. And between each customer, the next item, counters and common areas are sanitized between each customer or lobby user. So the staff is doing a lot of work to keep Everybody's safe by doing a lot of wiping down of customers, before and after customers. And so far it seems to be working because we haven't had anybody sick or any trace back to, the county, any of the county offices that I'm aware of anyway. Masks are required throughout the courthouse, including in our office. I was explaining earlier before we were live that we perform marriage ceremonies at our front counter, and the bride and groom are not allowed to take their masks off even for the kiss. We don't do the kissing part anymore, so they have to wait till they exit the courthouse because you have to have a mask on the whole time. And so that's another thing we're doing to keep everybody safe. And then all of the work areas for the staff are placed more than 6 feet apart. And also, that's one of the reasons why our kiosk, we only have one person at a time to make sure that that person has access to the whole space without having to be closer to another person than 6 feet. And so that's what we're doing right now. Things might change, as you know, in COVID, things change quickly, but we've been operating under this guideline for a while and it seems to be working. Let's see, let's move to the next slide. Okay, accessing the recorder's office, the clerk recorder services now. Okay, as previously in the previous slide, it's by appointment only. Our operating hours are from 9 o'clock to 4:30, being our last appointment at 4. Whoops, let's go back. Our first appointment's at 9. We have appointments through noon. We close for the lunch hour, which is new. We didn't used to close for lunch hour, but we have a reduced staff because we don't have any extra help people or temps that help anymore. So we have a reduced staff, so we keep the whole staff there instead of staggering the lunches. So it's been working a lot better for us to have the full staff there to be able to assist and work. And so we have appointments from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and then from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock is our last appointment. And then at 4:30, we clean the office down and get ready for the next day. Of course, we're closed on holidays. Appointments are scheduled by phone. We don't schedule appointments by internet because frankly, the calendar just changes much too quickly. So even to wait for somebody to respond to an email, everybody in the office gets phone calls all day long to schedule appointments. So we schedule them immediately and by phone only. So that's the number. It's also available on our website. You can call, you can ask for the next available appointment. You can ask for an appointment at a certain date and time if it's not taken, and we would accommodate you. Since the pandemic started, we now have a secure Dropbox I would be the hallway, the corridor, just outside the door. Any documents that are submitted through there, and there's also a sheet that you can put on there that has your information if you want to be called or what have you. You can access that Dropbox at any point in time. Of course, you don't have to have an appointment because it's outside the office. Any documents that are submitted, the next item, copy orders and documents submitted via Dropbox before 1 o'clock are generally processed the same day. And so that is almost every day, everything is processed that's dropped in there before 1. So if you can't get an appointment that day, which sometimes happens, the Dropbox is a really good way to be able to schedule, basically schedule your own drop off. You don't have to wait to get an appointment. You can schedule it just as you can drop in the Dropbox just as if you're at the counter. We will email your receipts when it's dropped in the Dropbox if you supply us with your email address. The form that is available next to the Dropbox has that information. It requests that information, and we would be happy to email it to you. You'll have just like as if you're getting your receipt over the counter. And so you'll have your recording information, your time it recorded, and that type of thing. Also a way to access is like we've always had, which is USPS or just your general mail or express mail. And that we've been processing all along. We've not actually been closed at all as far as like not work. We've been closed to the public, but that was the courthouse's action. But as far as like the employees working in the office, doing their job, we have been there every day. So everything's been getting done every day as quickly as we can, as efficiently as we can, and hopefully everybody, the general public and yourselves, hopefully you've noticed that. Okay, what's new? All right, so our self-service web. Technically, or not technically, but this group, outside of the office staff and our vendors, are the first group to hear about this new self-service web that we're going to be. It was actually supposed to go live today, but there was a couple of issues, some glitches that needed to be addressed before we could open it to the public. This is going to be on the web. So these items, these things that are listed here are what is going to be available at home, if you will. So we are going to have the official record index, something that we have been wanting, I have been wanting personally to get on line for a very long time. We are going to have the clerk's filing index. We are going to have a map copies available to be purchased. We are going to have official record copies available to be purchased, downloaded on your computer, on your office computer. You can print it right from there. Fictitious business name statements, self-service portal where you can download the information, use your credit card, other thing we're going to be getting. Marriage license issuance, we are going to be doing a lot of the paperwork that's going to be going into the self-service for marriage license issuance, which is still an in-person service for the final. You do have to come in person and sign the forms in the presence of the county clerk, but we can get a lot of the information ahead of time, and they fill out the forms and everything and submit them virtually. They can also use their credit card, and it can be pre-authorized, so it'd be nice and fast. Vital records certified copies, another thing. There's going to be a $2 service fee for credit cards, but we are going to have credit cards acceptance, which is something we've never had in our county, at least not since I've been there. So I can't imagine it was before '87. But anyway, just kind of touching back on the official record index, and just because I know some people have some questions about the index and the copies. The official record index is going to be just an index. Now in California, county offices, government offices, it's kind of a blanket statute, are not allowed to have the addresses, names and addresses of elected officials, past elected officials, law enforcement, or past law enforcement. So as you can imagine, that is not a list that anyone could readily compile and not make that information available on their website. So it's kind of contained county clerk recorders or county recorders throughout the state of California to not put their documents online, just the index itself. And so that's, you'll find is standard throughout the state. But what you will see is you can search by grantor's name, you can search by grantee's name, you can search by document type or specific time frame. Same things with maps. Maps, you can search by the names on the maps. We have a township section and range index. Starting next year, January 1st, we're going to be starting to index the APN numbers for both official records and, well, not for maps, but those will be township section and range still. You can download copies of the official records and even maps. If you have a printer to print a large size map or just your regular size map, you can print those if you purchase them. As previously mentioned, it's a $2 convenience fee to use a credit card. And you can order as many copies as whatever you want for that single use $2 fee. So if you have a group of things, it's not $2 per copy, it's $2 for the convenience fee once. Let's see what else. And that will be an index back to 1979, but the images are only from 1989. So the previous ones you can still purchase that way, but we would have to send those to you after the fact because they're not in our current software in this database. Let's see, what else? Oh, certified copies. Certified copies would not be available to be printed because those have a raised seal. Many people are probably familiar with those. So you won't be able to view a certified copy. That order would come into the office and we would mail those to your hard mail because the raised seal, of course, doesn't translate. Anyway, so I'm going to give you a look. You're the first ones to see the interface. Let's take a look. Here we go. So excited. First ones to see it. Okay, this is what it looks like. This is the face. This is going to be what will be hopefully available this week. So right in here, you could go in to request your certified copy birth death or marriage if your event happened in Humboldt County. You would go in here to apply for a marriage license. All the work ahead of time for all the forms and collecting documents would come right through here. You could do all the initial part of your fictitious business name statement. We still require an original, so that has to be sent in. And then this is the best one, the official records search. So this is going to be, I don't have this is just a slide. I don't have it to the next page. But if anyone has been into our office and seen our kiosk, that's basically the next step. If you were to go into the official record searching copies, it mirrors our kiosk that we have available in office. So that's pretty much it. I am going to pop over to questions, and I think that Dia was saying, or Bob was saying, that we were going to do questions at the end if anybody has any.
Kristine, we did get 3 questions.
Okay.
And anybody else who's interested in asking questions, please type those in. There is a Q&A tab on the bottom of your Zoom screen. So the first question was, can you share the web link for the clipboard? They couldn't find it on the website.
Yes, I will. Let's see. I don't have that up already to pop over to you, but if you go to the humboldtgov.org, which is the website that's showing here, and you type in fish and wildlife, or even if you type in CEQA, it will be on the side menu, both the postings and the filings there. But I could send it to you, and you could distribute it, Bob, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great. All right. Second question, are maps scanned to black and white or color?
They are scanned to black and white.
Okay. And do you have trouble taking?
All documents, in fact, all documents filed or recorded are scanned to black and white.
Okay. And do you take original color, or do you want originals to be black and white?
Are you talking about a map that's attached to a document for recording? Or a map
Yes.
that is yeah, we prefer, we will take either, but some colors don't show up as good when they're scanned. So we do prefer to have an original, and we're not allowed to scan a document other than the original that we receive. So if to be on the safe side, and if it's possible to do, I would not use the color one that you're going to submit on your original, plus the fact that it was never going to translate on the other side. So if your legend says, green line, or has a, obviously that wouldn't translate on the official record.
Okay. And then there was a question about the entity's signature blocks.
Oh, okay, good.
So for the example I was given would be City of Eureka, Miles Slattery, City Manager of the City of Eureka.
So I would, for a signature block such as that, they would use just the information that you just said. They would print, all of that information would be printed. And then that could be anywhere adjacent to his signature. We typically see a signature block where it is the name of the entity on top, and then followed by the signature below. And then below the signature, there's generally a line. And then that is where they would give the printed name of the person and their title. And then they could add that additional City of Eureka. But the entity name shouldn't be different in the block in 2 different areas. Like if it could say, like you wouldn't want to say Humboldt County Department of Redevelopment on the top, and then have on the signature line have City of Eureka. You would want to have City of Eureka, Department of you don't have them all matching throughout the document.
Okay. And one more question was regarding, so someone filed some CEQA documents and they were requested to add an email address to them, even though the form doesn't have a blank for email address. Is that still required?
It is only because we do keep track of the emails for the Fish and Wildlife Department. I know. Yeah, that's something that we were thinking about putting on the form. is there sometimes where you don't have the email address from the person, or it seems like there's every time it seems like they're able to have the email address. So I suppose the question is, can we get it on the form? So it's right, it's requested on there. Is that the?
Yes, but some of the forms are state forms too, so.
That's true. Yeah, so if I would always get the email address if you have it. We're gonna want that.
Okay, good clarification. And then under the government code 27383, do cities and counties need to pay the $50 filing fee for a CEQA categorical exemption?
Yeah, the 27383 is specific to recording when it's for the benefit. A CEQA is a filing, so it's actually a clerk filing. The 27383 is for the recorder side, because even though we're the clerk recorder, we're actually two separate and distinct entities. And that code section 27383 is for recording exemption. So that would be on your documents that are going to be submitted. Recording CEQAs are going to be filing, and the city and county agencies are required to pay the filing fee. They're not exempt from that.
Okay, well, good.
And I actually had a question. And I wanted to say, first of all, Kristine, I really enjoyed your crumpled paper slide. I thought that was
brilliant. My husband thought it was silly. Not to mention the curtains for displaying the first, I guess.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I thought that added a nice kind of flavor to the presentation. So
he doesn't know.
But my question was about this new site, and it's kind of cool that we were the first to see it.
Yes. It would have been great if it was available today. We're going to put that link, and you guys could have had a sneak peek.
Yeah, but still a sneak peek, so that was nice. But so can we use it for actually recording, or not recording, researching documents? If we wanted to come in and look for something, and if we had an instrument number, would we be able to research it? And can we go farther back than 1989 or 1979?
Well, the documents, you're gonna be able to search by document number is one of the ways to, you can search by the names of the parties, document number, or maps, township section range. You have to remember though, it's just gonna be the index only, the information. And so when you see a specific, an entry, you can click on it and you can see all the parties, all the information that is in there in the index for that particular item. But you wouldn't be able to view the image unless you bought the document. And then until we start in January it's not a requirement to put in APN, but because we thought it would be a lot more user-friendly, we're going to start putting the APN starting on the documents that are recorded January 1st. So,
yeah, that's going to be great. That's going to be really helpful.
So at least for those documents after, we'll have the APNs. But and then the other question was, in 1989 we started scanning. So those are going to be the documents that you're going to be able to purchase and print yourself off of the self-service website. And the index itself goes back further to 1979. So it'll give you the book and page reference. And then you could order, you would, if you knew those to be the parties' names, you could even do pre-research and take the information down and come in and view those documents that we have on what's called digital reel in our office. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that. We have the digital reel. Anything that was on microfilm or microfiche has been now converted to digital images and is available in office. And that's in office right now. For right now, that's in office only. We don't have that married up because we can only have the index. So, and not this other index. This other digital reel is just images, so we wouldn't be able to have that on the website. So to answer your question, before 89, you can do research for index names, but you wouldn't be able to purchase or see the document on the internet. You'd have to come in. And then everything before 79, those are, we have indexes going all the way back to the beginning on our digital reel too, that are by groups. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our books that are in our office, that you can go all the way back to, I believe that's late 1800s. And we have grantor and grantee books, and they're separated and they're in date order. So they're separated by groups of alpha, if you will, like the A's are together, A, B, E, and the AB to ABE. And then so of the names of all the grantors, so they have sections depending on what are the first letters of the last name. And then they put you in, then they would enter the information into the book, and then it's in date order. So all of the similar last names are together, but they are then in date order. And you'll see those for each year until you get to a little bit further along in the years. And then it's several years at a time. So you'll have like 58, or actually that's a reverse. The older ones, because there were less documents, you'll see like 98, 18 through like 1900 all together in the same book. And then you'll just turn, there's a legend on the front of every book that'll tell you what section the different alpha names are in. And so then you can go to that section, and you have to scan through each section looking for the name of the specific person, and that will lead you to the book and page number of the document. And then those are going to be in actual books, or those books are also all scanned into digital reel. So at this point, we just finished that project. Actually, it was part of the Social Security Redaction Project, where we took all of the records from the certain point forward and had them scanned and the Social Security number redacted out of it. So basically everything in microfilm. So we got rid of those because they still contain Social Security numbers. So we had to actually scan them and redact the Social Security numbers, but those are all available in digital reel. And unfortunately for right now anyway, until maybe that law changes, we can't have those images as a government agency. We can't have those images online, but in our office, so those would have to be accessed in person, or they can be ordered. If you know the book and page, you can order them with a check or money order or credit card now, because we have credit card.
That is very exciting.
Oh, I know.
It's all good news, yeah.
It's really good. It opens up a lot more, it opens up a lot of avenues to be able to take the credit card, because there's a lot of things we'd have to wait until we receive the check. So there's a lot of things we couldn't even do by email just because we didn't have access to them, obviously the money, the payment. So now that we have access to the payment, we're going to be looking for new ways as we go forward to be able to do more things by the web, in addition to just what we have scanned in our Tyler, which is our vendor, in our Eagle Recorder self-service kiosk.
Yeah, it's exciting to see so many things moving forward, and
yeah,
I'm sure everybody listening is also really appreciative to
this
that.
was actually
so
a project that we started 2 years ago, and then we had a big holdup with the ADA laws changed, and they required vendors to have reports. They had to basically give outlines of exactly what parts of their programs, their software met ADA requirements, and if they didn't, when they would meet requirements. And our particular vendor that we already have a recording program with, they actually, at first, they hired consultants to do the ADA reports, and then, and that was several months. And then they actually decided that they weren't going to do it because they thought it would make them liable in somehow, just because they wouldn't be able to give those that ADA software when they said they would. So we had to get special clearance from the Department of Justice and from our CAO to be able to continue the purchase of the software. So then we were ready to go. We got all past those hurdles months and months later, and then COVID hit. So because we were actually ready to go, to move to the next phase, and then everything shut down with our vendor. So anyway.
Now it's been a long journey.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but we're really excited. We hope that everyone's really going to enjoy being able to have that access that we've been really needing to have for a long time. And coming up after this, now in the future, what's going to be happening is e-recordings. So that we're going to be able to accept electronic recording from certain. There's vendors that can set up that the documents filter through, so that we won't have to, in some cases, accept the original. We would have a certified original from, and that'd be just moving further into the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Kristine. I'd like to echo Dilo's comments. This was a really fascinating presentation into a world that a lot of us see just from the counter, but don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes. And it's one more example where dealing with the COVID-19 restrictions has created new avenues for how to perform the work and so forth. So thank you so very much
Oh, you're
for
very
this
welcome.
presentation. And it has been recorded. So if there are people who want to make it available to other folks that they know that might benefit from it, they'll be able to find it online. I would also like to remind people that next month on October 13th, we'll be having another in our series of workshops conducted by Ethan Reddy-Lawton on relations with tribal governments. This time it will be on tribal lands, talking about the history of rancherias and reservations, and addressing jurisdictions and authorities and so forth on different aspects of working with Native American tribes here in Humboldt County and elsewhere in California. I hope you will pay attention to that one and sign up to view it as well. I'd like to thank Bob Brown for his work. He's a representative of AEP and has been our host for this program, and Dilo for helping with the coordination, for Kristine for this presentation. And we have a small team of people that are helping put together these ideas, and comments that you have on workshops you would like to see are more than welcome. So thank you all so very much, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Bob?
That's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks again, Kristine.